celebrate a great man, keeping his memory alive and fresh in our hearts and our minds. The great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a man who had a heart for all people, a man who demanded justice and freedom for all men, women, children, with no exception to race, color, or creed. We honor him today for all his God-given accomplishments. And with that being said, let this celebration begin.
Today's topic this year is more important than ever as we approach the 4th year or economic decline with a general election later this year. First, let me define despair. And we all have despair sometime in our life. To lose all hope. And hope is defined as a desire with expectation of attainment.
Yes.
I know everyone sitting here has crossed the path of both despair and hope, or both. We're currently a nation in despair and wondering what the future will be for ourselves and our children. I will show you how Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. handled his moments of despair and hope, how Jesus and his disciples handled their despair and hope, and how their actions brought about hope for their people.
All right.
Remember, Dr. King was not marching or speaking or trying to bring about change just for black people, but for all mankind.
All right.
I am sure not having money in your pocket is not just affecting the blacks or the old or the young, but all of God's people.
All right, come on now.
Today's call to action is not just for one group, but for all of us as the country slowly slips into despair.
Yes.
We have in our minds, can I meet the mortgage rate? Can I retire? Can I put my children through college? Can I even put food on the table for my kids or clothes on their back? I'll explain to you why we need to reconfirm the call to action that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. started years ago and is not finished. We have not crossed, and maybe we will not ever cross the finish line where we must stop worrying about fighting injustice. We must make sure what Dr. Martin Luther King started does not go in vain. Martin Luther King. Dr. King was marching in Selma, Alabama on March 7, 1965, the famous Bloody Sunday. The march was set in motion, what is called the Voters' Right March from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama. On that Sunday, Dr. King was leading 600 civil rights marches. They was attacked by the state and local police who was using billy clubs and tear gas. Needless to say, they took a beating. But that did not deter Dr. King. The next attempt, he brought 2,500 civil rights marches. They got a little farther between Selma and Montgomery, but they took another beating.
All right.
But Dr. King didn't stop. He says, I'll try again. On his 3rd march, which was March 16th, Dr. King did not stop because he did not know that Attorney General Robert Kennedy was going to send 2,000 soldiers and 1,900 members of the Alabama National Guard under the command of the federal government led by the FBI and federal marshals, and they made it all the way to Selma, Alabama.
All right.
Soon after that, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was signed. Would you have taken a beating over any cause? Most of us would have said no. For a few nights before Dr. King's death, he knew he was going to die.
Yes.
He made the statement, I just want to do God's will.
God's will, that's right.
He allowed me to go to the mountaintop. I looked over and I have seen the promised land.
All right.
I may not get there with you, but I know tonight, people, we as people, you will get to the promised land.
Yeah.
I'm happy tonight, and I'm not worried about a thing.
All right.
Have we given given up on hope? Its hope is gone. As Dr. King has called to action in Memphis, Tennessee, and paid with his own life, we must make a call to action to take care of our families and stop this despair and bring about hope for our children.
Yes.
Remember, it's not the actions of the many, but the actions of the few that make the difference.
1929, passed away in 1968, is best known as American religious and civil rights leader, who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Dr. King led the black boycott to segregated cities. Bus lines was led towards desegregation of these bus lines. Reverend King organized the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, and led the August 1963 March on Washington, which brought together more than 200,000 people. The protest helped to ensure the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The following year, Reverend King and the SCLC led a campaign for African American voter registration center on Selma, Alabama, which helped to bring about the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. On April 4th, 1968, he was shot and killed as he stood on the balcony of Lauren Motel in Memphis, Tennessee.
If I could write a magic song that everyone could sing, I would write of love, of hope and joy, and things that peace would bring. If I could write a magic song, the world would fill with peace. One song for all of us. One song would bring us peace. One song would make a miracle for all of us, a song of peace.
To move from despair to hope, by offering support and love to those of us who are greatly in need and wipe out disparity.
All right.
I asked you today these 5 things to keep in mind. Number 1, action is the antidote to despair.
Yes.
2, the road that is built in hope is more pleasant to the traveler than the road built in despair,
All right.
even though they both lead to the same direction. Number 3, it may be well that our means are fairly limited and our possibilities restricted when it comes to applying pressure on our government.
All right.
But is this a reason to do nothing? Despair is nor an answer.
Yeah.
Neither is resignation.
Yeah.
Resignation only leads to indifference.
That's right.
Which is not merely a sin but a punishment.
Yeah.
Number 4, there are no significant physiological or historical answers to human tragedy, only moral ones. Just as despair can come to one another only from other human beings, hope too can be given to only other human beings. Number 5, a religious man is a man who holds God and man in one thought, at one time, at all times, who suffers what's done to others, whose greatest passion is compassion, whose greatest strength is love and defiance of despair.
In 1964, Public Law 88-352 was passed by Congress, but not before 54 days of filibuster by several Democratic senators who presented a compromise bill that was weaker, and in fact, the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 got through the Senate. But on the morning of June 10, 1964, a young senator from West Virginia, Robert Byrd, completed a filibustering address after 14 hours and 13 minutes of opposing that legislation. He would later apologize for his failure to support the litigation and for his failure to support the King Day holiday.
All right.
But I must tell you that 45 years later, he would support President Obama's nomination of our first African-American federal judge in West Virginia, Irene C. Burton. As I watched C-SPAN, a fragile and clearly ailing Robert Byrd sat patiently in his seat on the Senate floor as he watched every vote until the gavel fell as the chair announced that she had been confirmed unanimously.
All right.
Tell me that's not revolution.